I was like, wow, like all the lights in my brain are turned on. It was just funny because I had more fun thinking about how to fix the telehealth platform that I was using to provide therapy, like how to fix it and make it better versus like actually providing therapy on it. Hi everyone, my name is Africa. I am an occupational therapist, a yoga teacher, and a web developer. Today I wanted to have a talk about why I am transitioning from the field of therapy fully into the field of tech. I did write a blog about this. It's called Why I'm Leaving the Field of Therapy for the Tech Field. I'll link that in the description if you want to read it. But I'll pretty much be going over what I wrote about in that blog. We're going to call this one the 10 stages of a burnt out healthcare worker. Stage 1, I call that one the optimistic new therapist. At this point, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I just graduated from 6 years of schooling, 2.5 of those years being getting my master's and crying every day because it was so hard. So after I went to get board certified, I got licensed in a few states, and then I moved from South Florida over to Georgia. I started working as a travel therapist, essentially. So I was going from different states each school year to kind of work in the schools. So I worked in Colorado, I worked in Atlanta, and I worked in Baltimore. And throughout that time, I was also working as a mobile therapist in the home. So I would go to the homes and see adults and children and provide therapy that way. I liked it. I thought that I was doing good work. I was helping and it felt meaningful, which for me is really important. So I felt like I was using a skill and being rewarded for it. By seeing little kids and adults just like actually meet goals and improve. And that is just like, words can't explain how good that makes you feel, especially if you are a giver or you're a person who is a therapist or a provider. The only thing is, and I didn't realize this because I was a new therapist, I thought this was normal, but I was taking home a lot of work. I was taking home hours and hours of work every single day, because most places are always chronically understaffed and they kind of just give you the work. So it's really up to you to say, hey, like I cannot actually physically, realistically do this work. But because most people in my field are women, who don't speak up for themselves a lot of the time because we feel so bad and because we have such big hearts, I think a lot of the times that gets taken advantage of. And you're just expected to do all the work. You're expected to work on the weekends. You're expected to clock out and do your work so that your productivity doesn't go down. And it's normalized. So I was just like, okay, I guess this is just what I have to do in order to be a good therapist. And that ultimately, obviously, led to me burning out because it's not sustainable to do, 2 hours of work after working 8 hours a day and seeing like 12 kids in one day, and then driving around and trying to talk to the doctors and blah, 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 blah. I was like literally going a little bit insane. Stage 2 is what I would call the big epiphany. And that was really just me asking, is this what I really want? I would say right around in summer of 2019. I'd been working for 3 years at that point, and I was getting pretty burnt out, but I was mostly suppressing that. So it was more like, okay, I'm the one who's weak here, so I need to keep going. And I just kept going and going and going until one day I found myself at my doctor's office, literally like having somewhat of a meltdown. I was just like crying uncontrollably. I was having a lot of panic attacks at the time. And at that point I realized, oh wow, it's like literally because I'm just constantly going and I'm not getting paid for my time and I'm overwhelmed. So I ended up, at that time I was really into yoga, and I still am. But at that time I was really, really into it to the point where I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. I'd already been incorporating yoga into my therapy sessions pretty regularly because I've been a yogi for many years at that point. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take some time and take a month to go to India by myself and enroll in a yoga teacher training so that I can become certified. So I hopped over to India for a month by myself, which was just an insane story by itself. And I remember looking into the fire while we were doing one of our like rituals, which were just like rituals of like deep contemplation and meditation. And I was just staring into the flames and I was like, wow, I have to make a decision. I have to figure out what I really want and whether or not this is what I really want. Like, do I want to keep on pushing myself beyond the point of like what I can take in order to keep providing services? And at that moment, it was really interesting because I looked into the fire and I was like, no, I don't want to keep doing that. Because if I do, I will not be here. You know, like I'm going to burn out into nothing. And that sentiment and that thought really frightened me, but also made me realize I am the person who is the most in control of my life. And I'm the person who can get myself out of this. And I'm the person who can make myself feel well. And I think that moment was so important because it was the thing that catapulted me into being like, all right, let's figure this out. What do I really want to do? Stage 3 is what I like to call the crash and burn, AKA the 2020 panini. Right around 2020, I don't know, whatever. Right around that time, I'd come back from India. I was all refreshed. I was like, yes, I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to do yoga therapy. I also started a job at a local university providing just supervision and teaching for the students who are in the master's program, getting their occupational therapy degree. And that, while is a whole nother story in and of itself, that was pretty interesting. I was feeling like I was doing meaningful work while getting paid very, very little, and doing, again, a lot of free work and a lot of work outside of my time at work to finish up getting done what I needed to get done. So I was providing therapy, I was doing yoga, and I was teaching, and all of a sudden 2020 happened and all of my contracts were gone. So I was doing therapy online at that time and in person. I was doing a lot. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, damn, I had like 4 different jobs, but I had to have 4 different jobs because I had to pay for my bills. So, you know, like, it's just things like that. When I think about it again, I'm like, oh my gosh, you were just doing too much, Africa. But anyway, I'd been working contract with local and private and public schools. And once 2020 happened, those contracts went bye-bye. So once, you know, we went into lockdown, everything went virtual, including me teaching in those classes. And it was so interesting because we were using these different technologies, one of them being virtual simulations. And the virtual simulations were so fun. I enjoyed teaching online more than I did in person because we got to use all these different programs. And I started looking into like virtual reality, virtual simulations, all the differences. And I was fascinated. So that led me even further down that rabbit hole. Also at the time, I was getting really into just virtual teaching, virtual therapy. I took my business completely online. In 2020, it was like for real online. Upheaval, contracts canceling, teaching online, the Zoom boom. You guys know the deal. We all went through it. Stage 4 was basically me hitting my pay ceiling and feeling chronically underpaid and constantly overworked. And that kind of put everything in even more perspective for me because everybody in healthcare was talking about how hard they're working. They were calling us heroes, but none of us were getting like paid the way that we needed to. All of us were burning out, feeling overwhelmed. And it was just like, I think really hitting that ceiling and just being like, wow, this is it, really got me thinking. And while I had my own business and that was cool and nice, insurance reimbursements were barely covering my overhead expenses. Contracts at the time were like giving pay that was honestly like insulting. And the telehealth contracts wow, if I could tell you, I mean, I should do just like a video by itself on that. But the telehealth contracts were paying really, really low, like barely enough for me to cover my expenses. So I spent a lot of unpaid hours filling documentation, billing, and messing around with insurance companies trying to get reimbursed, which was not fun. Now we have stage 5, which I like to call an exciting new world. So because I was doing telehealth and teletherapy and everything was completely online, I started contracting with tech companies that had teletherapy platforms, and I was providing the teletherapy. I was using all of these different technologies with students, and I started working heavily with assistive technology and homeschoolers in different states, which was pretty cool. After losing most of my in-person contracts, I just fully went online, like for real. And I also started marketing online. I started doing a blog. I started shooting yoga videos, and networking completely online. I pretty much lived on the computer and the internet, which, it's debatable whether or not that is a good thing to do. But for me, it just allowed me to do a lot of research, to work with a lot of different technologies, and to just learn about tech. The other thing that I was doing that kind of got me really thinking about technology and how to use it was I started working with students using assistive technology. And assistive technology are things that can be like software or hardware. I'm actually going to do a video just about assistive technology because I'm obsessed and I love it. It's one of my passions, but essentially it's hardware or software that allows an individual to use technology with more independence. So it can look like things like as simple as a Google Voice speech to text or text to speech. And it can be more complicated things like screen readers for people who have visual impairments. I got really, really interested in like UX research and design, especially as far as like accessibility and having people who have impairments be able to navigate websites with ease. And not be like overwhelmed by just the layout of what the website's looking like. I thought that was really interesting. And because I was working in this virtual space with a lot of technology, I had started running into people who were literally like suing companies for having websites that were not accessible. So I'm talking about people who were blind, who for some reason they'd go to try to like pay a bill or something, and they were not able to access that website. All of those things were so interesting, and I enjoyed it way more than I actually enjoyed like giving the therapy itself. I just loved consulting with parents and consulting with individuals who really needed that technology, and then showing them how it worked, and it didn't feel like work. So that to me was like my ding 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 to tell me, okay, maybe this is where I want to be. So the next stage, I would call that one becoming tech obsessed, because at that point I was just like, whoa, like I love doing this. I was making virtual like classrooms, setting them up in different ways, just designing different like wellness rooms virtually. I thought it was really fun. I was also like using interactive games, simulations to kind of increase hand-eye coordination, dexterity and reaction times, showing people how to use like keyboards that were adaptive with bigger keys. So it was really, really cool. I'm going to do a video on assistive technology for those who are interested. But basically that's what I was doing. So I would call stage 7 my reality check, because that's when I was really doing the deep dive into like how to make the yoga app that I wanted to make, and realizing like, yeah, maybe you can't do that because you don't have the skills. And then I started looking up like what skills I would need. And basically it was like, you need to know how to do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or learn how to do Swift, Kotlin, any of those things. And I was like, I don't know how to do any of those things. So I started doing like some Udemy courses just to see if I liked it. And like this idea of making a yoga app and talking about web accessibility became like a mild obsession, I would say. So I just spent so much time looking at like what I needed to complete to make this app that I really wanted to make. And that kind of took me to stage 8, which is burnout and tutorial hell. I think a lot of people who have thought about tech and are interested in it, they end up going on things like LinkedIn Learning and Coursera and Udemy and taking a bunch of classes that you never finish. So that was me. I took some accessibility classes. I took I took a UX research and design class. I took a user interface class. I took an HTML and CSS class. So that all led me to what I call stage 9, which is the big decision. So last year, I started taking the Harvard CS 50 class, which is their introduction to computer science. And while extremely challenging, that class was so interesting to me. I was like, wow, like all the lights in my brain are turned on. Like, I am so interested in learning about this, and I feel like I'm never interested in learning about anything. I'm just kind of going through the motions of trying to learn things so that I can do what I need to do. And this, I was like doing it for free on my free time, which is like, wow. So once I did that, I was like, you know what? I need to make a decision, like therapy or tech. Therapy and tech, tried that. But the therapy part is getting in the way of me really getting to the meat of the tech that I want to use. So I was like, okay, I'm going to enroll in a full stack development course and I'm really going to do this thing. So I started researching and looking for different courses that were online and that were within my budget, which, wow, that took a lot of time. And I finally found one. It was called 100 Devs, completely free 30-week boot camp online, and enrolled. Stage 10 is what I call the final goodbye. And that's just really what it is, the final goodbye. Once I enrolled, I started the boot camp and I was still working full time, which was pretty challenging, but also solidified my true commitment to wanting to do this because I was working, online, and then I'd get off the virtual telehealth platform and then I would start studying and do all my classes. But it just wasn't sustainable. Like, being a therapist and being on Zoom all day and getting Zoom drain in the brain and having to be present for hours and hours at Zoom working, it just wasn't sustainable with the amount of time that I needed to complete the boot camp. So last month, I walked away finally for good from occupational therapy. And while I say I walked away from it, I'm still an occupational therapist. I'm still a therapist at heart. That is always who I will be because that is just, I think, who I am. I'm a therapist. I'm a giver. I enjoy speaking with people. I enjoy healing. I enjoy the yoga therapy. All those things I'm not giving up. I'm still going to keep up with my licensure in all my different states. I'm still going to keep up with my board certification. I will just not be directly working with patients in anything outside of a consult role. So I'm still supervising other occupational therapists. I'm still mentoring newbie therapists. I'm still creating content about occupational therapy and yoga therapy. I'm just not seeing patients directly anymore because that is just not where my heart is anymore. And unfortunately, the field has gotten away from itself to where we're getting the same pay that we got 15 years ago, which, you do the math, it's not adding up. Reimbursement rates have gone down. Pay has gone down. The work has increased and the demands and the expectations have increased. So it's just not where I want to put my energy anymore. And I feel like I've paid my dues. I've done this for 6 years. I feel like I did a great job. I connected with so many people and I love my patients. I just am doing something different. I want to work with technology. I want to create apps that help people do things that they can't do. I want to work on things that I'm passionate about, and I want to teach and connect and build community around technology. So I'm really, really excited about what's to come. I'm excited to talk to you guys about what I'm working on. I'm working on and building a lot of different things. I'm just super excited. So I hope that you guys will follow this journey, and I hope that my talk has helped you. I know it wasn't very detailed as far as exactly what I did, but I'll be making some more videos about the process and different boot camps and some of the research that I've done. But I hope that this was helpful, especially for those who are therapists or teachers thinking about leaving the field and thinking about working with technology. You can definitely do it. I did it. I'm having a great time building and working with individuals and growing my business. So I say go for it. It's really scary to think about doing, but I think that OTs and therapists, counselors, teachers, we make excellent additions to the tech field. We know how to talk with people. We know how to empathize with people. We know how to teach. We know how to communicate. And those are all valuable soft skills that I think people are looking for right now in the tech field. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys soon. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.